thank you all our participants, who are here with us. As it is almost 7:30 p.m. here in Nepal, so I think I should say good evening to everyone. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Rhishikesh Nepal. Normally, I go by Rishi in my professional sphere. And I work as a senior business analyst and product owner in a company called eXtensoData. So basically, eXtensoData is a data analytics company, and where we leverage the data and build software and different data-oriented frameworks catering to financial industry, more specifically talking maybe catering to banks in general. And we are a startup which is funded by one of the largest IT companies in the country, which is F1Soft International, which is also a pioneer in fintech in Nepal. And today I'm bringing you a beginner's guide to product management. So with varied backgrounds, myself having a varied background, it's been, I think, almost 2.5 years, maybe 2.5 years, that I've been working as a product manager for the company. And today I'm bringing my own personal experiences, experiences that I've shared with my industry peers, my colleagues in the F1Soft group, and I'm bringing this presentation from a personal point of view. And I really appreciate your feedback. And this presentation is mostly catered to those viewers today who are planning to start a career in product management or are industry professionals trying to pivot towards product management. So let me start by talking who is actually a product manager. So this is a very famous diagram that you will find across workshops and training sessions and different talk shows about product management. Sorry. This is a diagram proposed by Martin Eriksson, who is one of the thought leaders in product management. And I think it sums it up pretty clearly, even if it's kind of vague, but it does sum it up who a product manager is. So let me share my personal experience and how I pivoted from another role into product management role and becoming an accidental product manager. And when I share my experience, it kind of correlates to all my industry peers as well in Nepal, because product management is kind of in a nascent phase in IT industry in Nepal. And most of the people who are kind of fulfilling the responsibilities are kind of accidental product managers. So it started about 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, where I was hired in a company called eXtensoData, and I was the first employee of the company. And I was sitting with my CEO, and we just had one intent from our parent company, F1Soft, and that was, in 5 years, Nepal is going to go through a radical transformation, especially in banking industry, where the industry will is moving towards digital banking, and there will be a mass of data that will be created. And we want to be in the forefront of that pivot and leverage our position to actually provide value propositions to banking through the power of data. That was the only intent we had. So we sat there and started thinking, okay, what are the different pain points that we can solve in banking industry? And so I started my journey by going to all different branches around my house, around my and around my office, and talking to different branch managers, talking to whoever customer I can find in branch locations, and talking to industry professionals on LinkedIn, and studying a lot about banking related directives from Central Bank of Nepal, and then reading lots and lots of information about banking. And then within a couple of weeks, me and my CEO, we got together and we had like 25 different pain points that we can solve leveraging data and building data products. So the first and foremost thing, if you want to pivot into product manager, you are also a business analyst. And so I had to transform myself into a business analyst by analyzing the business, analyzing the competitive environment, gathering market intelligence, analyzing customer needs. So this is one of the crucial aspects. And I think this is a very critical thing, because amongst my industry peers, most of the product managers, they come from a technical background, right? So during the course of the career, they had to pivot into a product management role, and they are from a technical background. And it is really challenging for them to actually understand the domain expertise, because understanding the domain, understanding the industry, understanding the real customer problems, it's really hard for people who coming from a technical background, because they have to have a new knowledge about the domain, right? So that's a critical challenge normally most of my peers are experiencing in product management field. Now going into technical aspect of product manager. So then what happened was, okay, so we had one product that we had in mind. We wanted to optimize the loan and deposit portfolio of a bank to increase the revenue. So in order to do that, we had to prototype something. So I had no background of coding at all. So I had to learn some scripting. So I did some learning. So I did some learning in R, and I kind of reached towards an intermediate level in scripting, and then I used that skill to prototype a product which I use as a wireframe, or let's say a requirement for my engineering department, where I disclosed all different jargons and technicalities associated with the product or the engine as a whole. And so this is another critical aspect of product manager, right? So you need to understand the technicalities behind the product. You need to understand about your architecture. You need to understand about the basic languages that you're going to use. You need to understand, what kind of foundational, algorithms or statistical techniques that you're going to use if you are working in a data-related industry. So you don't need to have a strong command. But at least having some kind of knowledge about the technicalities associated with what you're building is extremely crucial and important. Even if you do not master it, I think you need it so that you can build, so that you can communicate the requirements well to the engineering department and somehow kind of allow them to visualize what they're building and on top of what they're building. So that's a technical aspect of a product manager. And talking to my industry peers, there are some of my friends who have actually pivoted to product management role from a non-technical background, and that is where they find a real challenge of learning some new skills to at least make at least visualize their product to the technical team. I still remember one of my friends who had to build a user interface for a product and didn't know anything about the technicalities associated to building a user interface. So in order to build a wireframe, she actually learned Power BI and Microsoft Power BI and build a prototype on the Power BI, which worked as a wireframe for the UI team. So she had to pivot and learn a new technical skill, right? So that a product manager does. The next is a UX, which is user experience. I had a really harsh experience associated to learning that as a product manager, I should always be thinking about the user interface of a customer. So I was in a meeting with two banking professionals, a lady and a gentleman. I was showing about our product, and I was going all out. I was really excited, showing lots of Excel sheets, running the algorithms in RStudio, and then generating different data points and talking about that data points in the presentation. And right after 10 minutes, I just stopped and I looked at the lady, and she was completely not there with us. She was looking somewhere else, and she was completely lost. And I could see the gentleman, and I still remember his eyes blood red and all watery, and I knew he was struggling so hard just to stay awake during the demo of the product, right? So, and then I stopped the presentation and I asked the gentleman, okay, so what do you think about the product? So he just said, yeah, it's a good product, and maybe we should pitch it to a senior manager. Where he had no clue, I stopped the presentation in between and did not even talk about the real value proposition of the product. And that's where it struck me. The end user really doesn't bother how you did it. They're only bothered what you did it, right? And they have some measurement yardsticks in terms of whatever you did is useful to them or not. So they are actually they should be involved with the product. So you should be very careful in terms of building a user interface in terms so that your end client can interact with the product. And that was what was lacking in what I was showing during that demo. And these three experiences led me to actually think about a product management perspective, think about positioning myself as a product manager. So I had to understand about the business. I had to learn some technical skills, and I always had to keep in mind there's not just building an amazing product is enough. You have to make sure how your end user will use that product, the user interface behind the product, so that they can actually have an emotional connection with the product and can understand the real value proposition. So if you do all these three things, and if you're ready to do all these three things, then you are right there in that intersection point, and you are a product manager. So I think that diagram proposed by Martin Erickson is kind of my pick in terms of how you see a role of a product manager. That is just the front side of it. But the thing that is hidden is when you become a product manager, or when you are a product manager, you have to work with people. And working with people is extremely hard. So you will be working with the stakeholders, trying to build the right thing, and trying to always negotiate and communicate with stakeholders in terms of how you're delivering the right thing. Then you're constantly communicating with the Scrum Master, who is majorly focused in how you build it in terms of whether you are minimizing the risk, whether you are not changing the requirements, whether you are not really pressuring the team and disrupting the team balance, but also making sure that you build things in a consistent manner and also slowly increase the velocity in how you deliver things. And then you're also negotiating with the development team, the engineering team, right? And there's always a great tussle between the product and the development team, because the development team, they're always asking about more detailed requirement, really not always a tussle between the requirement not being enough, and they're always focusing on the hard stuff, right? So the hard stuff is not always the most valuable stuff. So you have to negotiate and manage their expectations there as well. So being a product manager is one thing you have to keep in mind and be very mindful about. Is it's all about people management, and it's all about expectation management. And if you're trying to pivot into product management role, which I actually didn't realize when I actually pivoted. I thought it was just building the product and building exciting products, right? But I didn't realize that there was underlying great responsibility of managing people and managing expectations and making sure your product vision is communicated across the team, and you can rally the team behind in achieving what is actually valuable to the end customer. Let me start by a question that I get asked a lot from people who are just starting out in product management and moreover in project management. What is the basic difference, just in a simplistic term, what is the basic difference between product management and project management? I think the diagram is trying to communicate that. The left side is the guy who is sculpting, right? So that is product management. So that is, you envision a product. That means you go to the client, you talk about the problems, then you envision what you're going to build. You envision in what kind of architecture you're going to build it. Then you segregate that product into different core features that you will have to deliver in order to build the whole product as a whole. So that's all about product management. And project management is, and as you can see, there's a guy or a gal sitting in a I don't know, there's something like a sand time machine kind of thing. So it basically trying to communicate that it is all about how you're going to deliver, right? So you can say that a Scrum Master is kind of a project manager, but the scope is only defined to managing the team and is not kind of correlated with managing the finances and the expenses and management of the resources. But nevertheless, you can say somewhat a Scrum Master is a project manager. So project management basically entails how you're going to build that product. What kind of resources do you need? How many people do you need? How much time it will take? How much money it will take? Where you will go and buy the servers and all those things. And it's all about project management and delivering the product development, ensuring the product development is happening in time. So on a personal level, I kind of work in both realms because I'm working in a startup. So as a product management, I always focus on collecting the requirements from the client and envisioning about the product and connecting the dots and trying to communicate the product vision to the team, and then sitting with the team to build to segregate the product into various incremental features that we can deliver and ultimately deliver the product to the client. Well, on the other side, I'm also managing. Thinking about, okay, we also have an executive action team, and I'm part of the executive action team, and we're always thinking about, okay, so what kind of service do we have? Do we have enough server to build and run the model and handle the data? Do we have access? Do we have a green signal in terms of security from the client? Do we have enough resources? Do we need a new laptop? And all those things I'm kind of associated in that sphere as well. So that is project management for you. So next question that I get asked a lot within my industry peers, especially with the junior team members, is what is the difference between product manager and a product owner? So they're more or less the same, but I think I think product manager has a bird eye view towards the product vision. Let me start with product owner, right? So product owner is I think is a concept that arose out of Agile, right? It is one of the major roles in Scrum framework. So product owner's core responsibility is to talk to the client, gather the requirement, make sure the requirement is prepared in such a manner that it can be used as a master software requirement, the specifics document. It is well it can be well communicated to the development team members, and how you're going to segregate that product into core features so that team can work on it. So all those things, it's more internal focused and team focused and task focused, and that is product owner for you. The next is product manager. So product manager mostly focuses on, again, talking to the client, but not just about one single product or one single version of the product, but the whole product ecosystem, the future of the current version of the product. The product manager is mostly thinking about, okay, so what is the competitive dynamics in the landscapes in the industry? The product manager is mostly thinking about, okay, the market intelligence and how the product will evolve over a long term, how the customer will use the product over the period of time. So those kind of over a bird eye vision of the product and product ecosystem is majorly thought by a product manager. And it's not necessary that there is two different people in the company. A product owner can also be a product manager, and a product manager can also be a product owner, but it's just how he or she differentiates or separates his or her time, right? So a product owner thinks about the ecosystem of the product and the bird eye view of the product, whereas a product owner is mostly focused on converting that vision of the product into a communicatable, understandable requirement that can be further worked on by the development team, right? So giving my personal experience, I work as both heads, a product manager and product owner. So when I'm working as a product manager, I'm always constantly talking to my team and to the client and with my CEO about the product vision, about the 5-year plan, about the 2-year plan, about our product ecosystem, and how we are going to create future versions of the product. What are we going to do to solve the core value propositions, solve the core problems of the client in terms of delivering what kind of value proposition we are delivering, and also thinking about what new problems that might arise in the future, or new requirements or new pain points of the client that might arise in the future, and design a product roadmap, right? That's what I do as a product manager. And as a product owner, what I do is, okay, so what I'm supposed to do in this release, all right? So what kind of core features, important features that we need to immediately deliver, that I'm bringing those things in my product backlog, and I'm separating those core product visions into workable features, and then I'm sitting with my team and the further working on that product backlog and separating it into different, as much as possible, into task level, and how we are going to cater to that task. What are the risks and the complexities behind the task, and what we need to do to achieve it. So I'll work on that sphere as well as a product owner. So types of product managers. This is a diagram that is proposed by Jason Shin, and I really like this diagram because especially for technical people who are trying to pivot into product management, as an engineer, normally how you can work is you can go out there, explore all the different dynamics of your research, and then bring them back to your linear line of how you do things, right? It's step 1, step 2, step 3, then step 4. But as a product manager, there's never a linear line. It's like having multiple personalities, and it's really draining at times, because as a product manager, you have to pivot your mindset according to how your product lifecycle is growing, or how your company's lifecycle is growing, right? So I will share my experience, how I had to pivot time and again between different personalities within the role that I'm fulfilling right now. So during the nascent phase of my company, of our company, I had to think about, okay, what are different products that I want to develop? I had to think about the problems of the business, then designing some radical products that we can, leveraging data that can solve the problem. One of the greatest products that I've ever worked on was optimizing the entire loan and deposit portfolio of a bank and increasing their revenue, given that the portfolio optimization was that we worked on was for 300 different branches of a bank and with hundreds of different constraints and regulatory requirements. So thinking about those things is all about the explorer. So what an explorer does is he or she is looking at the forest, which means the overall vision of the product, the overall value proposition that the product might deliver in not just in coming 6 months, but a year, 2 year, 5 years after that, and thinking about it in a logical fashion, just core focus on what you're going to build. That is the explorer. Then I had to pivot into an advocate. So what an advocate is also thinking about the broader vision of the product, but not just on the core functionalities of the product, but about the stakeholders. That's why there's a heart there, right? So you're thinking about the stakeholders, you're thinking about your business partners, you're thinking about your team, right? So and you are advocating the product in terms of how you're aligning the team with the product vision of the stakeholders, how you're managing stakeholders' expectations so that you don't overwhelm your team. So such kind of decision making that you have to do, and then if you do that, then you are an advocate. So which right now I'm an advocate. So I work with the client, and the client throws me a lot of different requirements behind the product. Then I had to sit with the Scrum Master and actually think about, okay, so this is the expectation of the stakeholder, but we have to fulfill that. But what about the team? What are the position? Can we deliver it? Do we need to add some new members or add some new bandwidth in our team? So that is what I'm doing right now, an advocate. The next is the organizer. The organizer is extremely meticulous in separating the features into workable tasks and making sure that each and every team members are aligned with the requirement, right? So an organizer is obsessed with acceptance criteria, with the requirement, with the constraints behind the requirements, and making sure that team is always in line with with achieving the acceptance criteria for that single feature, and that is in a very detailed oriented manner. So that is an organizer, and is always focused in whether or not the team is going to achieve what we are planning or not, and is always thinking about whether or not what we achieved is going to be valued by the end stakeholders or not. So that is the organizer. The technician is mostly logical and is thinking about a particular task and how the task is going to be achieved. So a technician thinks about, okay, what are the algorithms that we can use to deliver this particular feature? What are the architecture that we can use? What are the language that we can use? What is the fastest way to do it? So that is a technician and is not bothered by the how the team is going to react, or is not much bothered by how the team is going to react or how we're going to achieve the end stakeholders objectives, but much more focused in how we are going to do it in the most optimum manner. So that is a technician for you, right? So this is some points that I jotted down today. I actually talked with some of my friends who are also product managers, and what are the challenges that we actually face as a product manager, right? And these are some real life stories, and even if you go to your own country or your own professional sphere and talk about these points with product managers, I think they might actually state at least one of these points, because one way or the other during the course of your profession as a product manager, you are going to stumble across at least one of these points. The first thing is you are the hero or the heroine behind the scene. So what does this mean is product manager is like the is leading without authority, right? So a product manager has to be a master communicator and has to rally the team where he or she is kind of empowering the team, and where the team is kind of understanding the product vision, where the team is understanding the risk associated with the delivery, understanding the value propositions of each and every features that we're delivering to the client, and it's kind of working towards it in a synergistic manner. So if you're able to do that, you're always behind the scene and the team is always in front of it, right? So you're never in the limelight. If you I think when I say when I name these people, right? So let's say when I name Kate Arnold, or when I name Jane Manning, you'll never hear these names. So Kate Arnold was actually the product manager in Netflix, and Netflix, when they actually started those their algorithmic approach towards reviews and ratings and movie suggestions, she was actually the one who was leading the product, right? So you'll never hear her name. Similar, when I say Jane Manning, she was actually the product manager when Google AdWords first came out, right? So when they designed Google AdWords, which is like a 50 billion, generates 50 billion in revenue for Google, but you'll never hear her name. So these kind product managers that's always the hero or the heroine behind the scene. They're never in front of the scene. The end customer might see sales or the company as a whole or the engineering team, but will never see product manager as the core person who's responsible in the delivery. But if things go south, it's always the product manager who is in the limelight. If the things are not working, then you are always in the limelight. You are the one who is in the front lines. The stakeholders will talk to you and show their dissatisfaction with you. The engineering department will show the dissatisfaction with you. You'll have to negotiate with the Scrum Master if there's massive changes that might happen in the product backlog, which might impact the subsequent sprints. So it is always you who is in the limelight if things go south, right? And the third challenge that a product manager this is a nightmarish scenario for a product manager. That is, what if the backlog is empty? Which means that you have to work in next sprint, which is, let's say, the next 2 weeks. And okay, so what are we going to work on? And you go to backlog and you have nothing in the backlog, right? Or the backlog is really light. And that might happen. Whenever I talk to my industry peers, most of the product managers generally complain that they have too much things to do in their backlog, and they're really struggling with prioritizing and consistently changing the priority of the items and how they're going to deliver it to the team. But for me, and especially me working in a research and development oriented company, it's really challenging to keep your backlog, to keep a heavy backlog. Because right now what I'm experiencing is we have our R&D company, we have built our product modules, but the client is really slow to adopt. It's a bureaucratic industry, the banking industry, right? So they're really slow to adopt our products. So we've already built so many things. Now we lack a backlog. We have a very light backlog, and this is something that you might experience as a product manager as well, because because if you don't have a product-oriented culture, product management-oriented culture in your company, then you will really struggle with this. Because I've seen many startups in Nepal who are adopting Scrum but have failed to implement it properly. So they don't have a product backlog grooming meetings. Their sprint planning meeting is really an opinionated meetings, right? And they are always inside the buildings. They don't get out of the building and talk to their clients about the next pain points that they want to solve. And those are the things mainly hindering fulfilling their backlog. So as a product manager, when you are starting out as a product manager, I think this is something that you might really experiencing a light backlog. The next thing is if you are a product manager, trust me, you will be a headless chicken. So what do I mean by that? So what I mean by that is it doesn't mean you're a bad product manager, but most of the time you're always firefighting for the team. That means sometimes, especially if you're working in an R&D oriented company, the requirement might change dramatically. The client might change the business assumption, and you're always chasing the requirement, right? So in order to ensure, and a Scrum Master is constantly bashing you out for changing such kind of requirements. So you're always constantly in communication with the Scrum Master and trying to communicate with the team with the changed requirement, trying to communicate with the team with the changed structure of the data, with the changed nature of the data, trying to communicate with them to use a different algorithm. So it is always firefighting, and most of the time you have to do that, and it might seem like you're a headless chicken, right? So it's not always rosy when you become a product manager. So if I could start over, what would I do to become a better product manager? And these are some of the points that I think that I would really do. And these are some of the points that I've actually realized after talking to my industry peers by attending different workshops and discussions and gathering sessions and discussion sessions. I don't want to sound, whatever I showed you just now, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I want you to understand the complexity of a product management role. And if you might have your own way of handling different challenges to be better product managers. I think these are some of the things that I did and am still doing in order to become a product manager. Better product manager. So the first thing is focusing on the problem and not the solution. So as a product manager, I think this is some of the things the beginners actually make this mistake. You have a vague idea of the problem, and then you are directly diving into different solutions that you want to propose. And at the end of the day, when you build a product and you showcase it to the customer, they're really not interested in the product anymore, right? So as a product manager, right now what I focus is I always follow the Pareto principle, which is 80-20 rule. So I spend significant energy in order to focus on that core 20% of the pain points. If 20% of the features that I want in my product, that solves the 80% of the pain points, right? So if I can do that, then whatever solution that I'll make it will solve the core problem of the client. So in order to figure out that 80%, you have to spend significant time and energy in researching on the problem, visiting the sites with the client, talking to the client, talking to different users who might use a product. So you have to spend significant energy on that. So I think as a product manager, your core focus should be to understand the problem and not really focusing on the solution in the beginning. And when you have hammered out that core 80% of the problems that you can solve using 20% of your product value proposition, then you might want to focus on the solution. The next thing is do not listen to your customers. Now, I'm saying that in some context. So if you're listening to your customers, do not listen to them when you're talking about solutions. They are really bad at providing solutions, right? But they're really good at identifying the problems. So listen to your customers when you are actually identifying the problems, but do not listen to your customers when you're actually trying to build a solution. So I'll share an example with you. So we have built a business intelligence solution. So when we went to the customer and talked about, okay, what are the different features that you want in this solution to cater to your problem, then the customer bombarded us with more than 40, 50 features that they want in the particular product, right? Now, to deliver that feature, it will take us years to do that. And it is virtually impossible to do it in 6 months' time. And most of the features actually did not even directly cater to the core problem that we're trying to solve. So customers sometimes reaching out to the customer in terms of what kind of solution do you want is a bad idea. So what do is you talk to the customers to explore the problems, then you build solutions that actually caters to the problem, and then you take that solution to the customer, focusing on only the problem that you're trying to solve. And then if customer wants to add something more, then you always align customers' expectation to the core problem that you're trying to solve, and then you deliver that first version, right? And then work on other features that customer is wanting in subsequent versions. But if you go to the customer and ask, okay, what do you want? Okay, this is the problem, this is the solution. Tell us what you want more in the solution. Then it will be virtually impossible for you to handle that particular product, right? The third thing is that I would have loved to get advised early is a product owner is not an oracle. So you're not an oracle. You will never have the ultimate answer and solution to all the problems associated to a product, right? So it is extremely important for a product manager to work with the team, to work with the Scrum Master and the team lead to establish a culture of collaboration. So you should always have product backlog refinement meeting. At least spend 10% of your total sprint time on backlog refinement meeting. You should always have a sprint planning meeting where you can talk about what you're going to do in next sprint. You should be always willing to reduce the risk, by taking some spikes within the sprints and negotiate that with the Scrum Master, so that it might, even if it might impact your velocity, you need to do it so as you can find solutions to the problem. You should always go to the client and the customers and actually try to solve the problems, and by taking advice from them. In such a collaborative manner, now you can solve the problem. Do not expect that you can, do not take yourself as a person in a position who can solve all the problems, but you can. So you have to establish a culture in the company so that you can, solve the problems, by being a product manager, always keeping the product vision in line and always rallying your team in solving customers' problem. That is your only core problem, their core objective. The next thing is, I think if I could start over, I would actually go and teach myself to separate my problem versus the customer's problem, right? So my problem means your company's problem, your business's problem, and customer's problem is customer's problem. So product manager's core objective is to maintain a balance between these two expectations. So I still remember talking to my business people in the company. So we built a business intelligence solution, and business people were saying that, okay, this is the standard solution that we're going to give to the customer. Now, for any added features, any added support, we'll charge the customer, and that's our revenue model. So when I went to the customer, what the customer started saying was, we need a business intelligence solutions where everything should be dynamic and everything should be in our control, and we can create our own visualizations, we can create our own reporting systems. So that was the customer expectation. Now, as a product owner, it is absolutely crucial for you to balance these two. Yes, you are a product owner and your focus is to solve customers' problem, but sometimes customer will demand things way beyond your capabilities, and you have to balance that expectations as well. So what I did was I talked to the business team and I said, okay, so at least the things that can be controlled from the front end, like creating dynamic dashboards, let's give that for free to the customer, or let's give that to the customer use in our standard price. And anything that should be operated in the backend and have to be generated using our backend, like reports, we'll charge customers for that. So I went to the customer and I said, listen, we'll give you these things for free in a standard price. We'll also give you lots of reportings, which was kind of, a byproduct of our analysis for free for you guys. But if you want some prescriptive reports solving to specific business problems, we need to charge you because we need to have a different analysis for that and need to run our whole engine for that. And customer kind of agreed to that, right? So it is a crucial role for a product manager not to just side with the customer or not to just side with the business, but to side with both of them and balancing their expectations. The final thing, if I could start over and if I could start doing this 2.5 years ago, was saying no. As a product owner, your core job is to manage expectations. Not only expectation of the customer, but expectation of a scrum master, expectation of a team and other stakeholders as well. Where keeping in line that all those expectations are managed so that you can solve customers' problem. So there will come a lot of times where you have to say no. So in my own experience, and even my friends and my colleagues who are other product owners as well. So we are kind of learning. We all are learning to say no, because whenever our customers they demand something, they kind of overpower us with all the requests. So we have to say no means not outright no, but manage their expectation by saying that these are the core features that we're delivering at this release, solving your core problems, and whatever you demanded, we'll cater to it in subsequent sprints if we see the value and if whatever you've demanded actually solves your problem. So we do that and we educate the customer as well. So when we were talking about the development team, what we do is that, yes, you want to solve the hard problems, I understand, but no, we cannot always focus on the hard problems. Sometimes we have to focus on problems which might not be attractive to you from an engineering point of view, but it's extremely crucial to our customer and is worth more in terms of its value to the end customer. And you have to say no to your development team as well. So finally, I think what it takes to become a good product manager, and these are the lessons that I learned the hard way, and these are the lessons that I normally share with my industry peers as well. And I think these are the lessons that I've learned from them as well. These are 3 key points to becoming a good product manager. The first thing is you should always focus on delivering the minimum sellable product and not the minimum viable product. Now, what does this mean? A minimum sellable product, let me start with what is a minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is where you talk to the customer and then you gather requirements, you gather the pain points, and then you try to solve all of them. What you do is you create the minimalistic, you prototype the minimalistic features, and then you combine them to show the customer how you can solve all those features at once, right? And that is not sellable. The customer, will say, okay, you have solved that problem, but this is not the product we really want. Now, what is a minimum sellable product? A minimum sellable product is you focus on the customer's problem, you focus on the 80% of the problem, and by catering to that 80% using only 20% of the core features. So you deliver that 20% like a marketable product. You deliver that. Now, any additional features, you kind of wrap it around your core delivery like a skeleton. And now that becomes a minimum sellable product. Now, as a product manager, it is extremely crucial not just to build a product vision, but to build a sellable product vision, right? So you want to sell the product. So in order to do that, I think a good product manager should always focus on a minimum sellable product and not the minimal viable product. Next is learn to recognize the intent and interest. I personally, as a product manager, have worked on a product for a year and cost my company a lot of money, and the product has failed. Now, why has that happened? The thing is, as a product manager, it is vital for you to understand whether the client is showing some kind of interest on your product or is actually showing some intent to buy the product. That is absolutely crucial. So the product that has failed in our company, we worked at for a year on that product. But again, I just said we didn't focus too much on the problem, but we focused too much on the solution. And the solution was really, really fancy. It catered to lots of different problems, right? So while building that product, we actually talked to the only CFOs in the banks and only the business heads in the bank. But we failed to talk to the real users of the product, which were the branch managers. So when we actually built the product and when we talked to the branch managers, it was not really, correlating or kind of aligning with their expectations, and we had to reboot the whole product. So don't get fooled by the interest of the product. So focus on the problem, focus on all the users, and focus if you are able to focus on those problems and build a solution, and then when you show it to the customer, then you can measure the intent to buy. So it is, I think, this is a real skill a good product manager has, whether he or she can separate whether the client is showing an intent towards the product, intent towards buying, or the interest towards the product, right? And the final thing is master personal selling. A product manager, especially when you're working in a B2B environment, you are a marketer as well. So, a product manager should be a master personal seller as well. You have to be a master communicator. You should know how to deal with different buying centers in the business, especially in B2B realm. There are different people, different groups of departments associated to buying a product. They are like the core users of the product. They're like the business people. They are like the IT departments. There are the finance departments. There's so many departments, and you have to have a strategy to cater to all those different departments, to have a personal selling strategy so that you can sell your ultimate product to all the different users, so that ultimately your products is finally getting bought by the ultimate business. So you need to have a pre-approach, how you approach different users. You need to have an approach strategy, which is how you're going to interact with the user and how you're going to show the product to that user, and then how you are going to close your deal as well. You need to have all those skills. So, for instance, you might have to deal with IT, to ask for resources to run the UAT, or to ask for data, and sometimes you have to talk to business people. There, you don't talk about the problems that you're facing in data, but you talk about how your product is solving business problems. And sometimes you have to talk to finance, where you'll be talking about, all about your revenue models and all about your pricing strategies, and you have to, answer those questions. So if you do all those things, and if you master all these things, then only you'll be able to solve the problem. And I think as a product manager, you need to have all those skills to be a master personal seller. So by saying all these things and sharing my personal experiences, I think I want to say thank you. Thank you for your patience and listening to me. And I open the floor for Q&A.
Thank you, sir. So we have one question that which manager is better to handle the team, the product manager or the project manager?
Well, I think both. The thing is, to be honest, there aren't actually two separate managers. And if you are working in a really large company, they might have a product owner and a product manager, but both of them are extremely crucial. Product owner is extremely crucial because product owner focuses on the team and focuses on the task in hand, and product manager is extremely crucial because your product managers actually decides the product vision. Forgive me, I think you asked about product manager and project manager, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, forgive me for that. So I think both are important. A project manager ensures how your product is getting developed, right? So project manager's responsibility is to, providing resources to the engineers, or even collaborating with HR to hire more engineers or more QAs so that your product is getting delivered, is managing the finances behind it, managing the timeline, how you're going to deliver and cater towards the final, cater in building your final product. So that is where a project manager is necessary and is important. And a product manager is important because the product manager actually thinks about, builds the product vision, builds the product ecosystem, and rallies the team behind behind development of the product. So both of them are extremely crucial. And I think if you talk about project management, I think Scrum Master fulfills that role. And normally in a larger team, there's an executive action team as well. So Scrum Master and the executive action team, both of them are the project managers who are important and is necessary. And product owner and the product manager is the product manager in itself. And to sum up the answer, I think both of them are extremely crucial to lead a team or to support a team.
Okay, thank you, sir. And just like, can you say a little bit about the outsourcing project? So how the projects are being managed? So in there also, as you mentioned in the slide, just say no. So So that might be for the local projects, but for the international projects or outsourcing projects, should we always say no if the client is thus bombarding the requirement?
Yeah. I think, Jay, well, I'm not quite accustomed with outsourcing kind of business model, but but the core principle might correlate with outsourcing business as well. I think be it outsourcing business, be it local business, be it a specific domain, either healthcare or banking, I think it is all about educating your end user. You know, sometimes the end user forget about their own core problems, right? They fail to see the forest, and they're focused on the trees, right? So I think the company or the product manager should be a master educator as well. So even if you are working in an outsourcing business and they're bombarding you with the requirements, I think you should negotiate with the end user in terms of what you're trying to solve. And if you solve their major problems, with the features that you're delivering, with the minimalistic features that you're delivering, I think there is where maybe you can negotiate with them. So if they're bombarding features and that features is not solving the core problems that you're trying to address, then maybe you can educate your end client and negotiate there. I think that is how. I think it's all about education, Jay, and
Uh,
communication.
okay, okay. So means a good communications is needed yeah,
Yeah.
on the project management field. Okay.
Yes. A product manager should be a master communicator and a master personal seller and a master educator, and it works for all three stakeholders.
Okay. In the previous we have got a question that is the OBA room is in the Nepal. So are we practicing the OBA room in Nepal? So have you got some idea about that?
Well, talking about Obeya rooms, we don't have Obeya rooms per se, but
Mm.
I think we use some of the frameworks that Sudha explained in our company, and apply that in a synergistic manner. I'll give an example. So we have a product backlog. So, which actually defines the overall product roadmap across different Scrum teams, and we have a Kanban board where we track all our product defects, so where bugs, all the dependencies, and we try to analyze that board as well, so that one Scrum team is not impacted by the other Scrum team. So we try to resolve the dependencies, and we also have a consolidated document where people can contribute in terms of how they have solved the problems, and we have key metrics that we designed there to measure the velocity, to measure the efficiency, to measure our internal KPIs. So we do all those things, but we don't have an OBI room per se. So we use different tools, project management tools, and we use even SharePoint and Excel, and we use it in a synergistic manner, and that kind of gives us some sense of what OBI rooms tries to cater.
Okay, sir. So yeah, sir, we are at the last of our webinar. So thank you for your wonderful presentation, and hopefully all the question has been asked, answered. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Rishikesh, sir,
Thank you.
and
Thank you so much.
thanks for coming to Tech Webinar Series 19.